The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of a never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?
And welcome to World Blockchain Round Table. This is episode 110, Quantum Computing and Encryption. But before we jump into that, I'd love to introduce our panel for today. We have Distant, aka Dave, joining us.
Howdy.
We've got Greg from Rivet.
I love quantum computers. This is going to be so fun.
I'm excited. And we have Litecoin Lisa joining us as well.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So a little quick update from last week. And I'm your host, John Branch, as I am every week for the past, I don't know, it's been like 5 months now. I've had a pretty good run, I think.
It's been some time.
It's been some time. Time has passed.
For a site better than I can do, that's for damn sure.
Last week we had an episode, and each host is going to receive 93 lot. Each topic contributor is going to receive 58 lot. Last week's theme was decrees as blockchain king or queen, nominated by IN4M, receiving 58 lot for that. As a reminder, these ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits, and governance votes. And we have our exciting results for the July themes for World Blockchain Roundtable. So, the themes for July are going to be blockchain and whistleblowers.
That's my favorite.
The Hitman emails. We have cryptocurrency wallets and possibilities of crypto and social media in the metaverse. So Dave, you already said your favorite was blockchain and whistleblowers.
Yeah.
Greg, I'm guessing that's probably your favorite as well.
That was my pick, actually, yeah.
Nice. And Lisa, what are you excited for?
Oh, I'm all over the Hinman emails. I'm going to see if we can get John Deaton to come.
Oh, that would be really good, actually.
Yeah.
He's been here before. I would love to have him back and talk about that specifically. That would be a valuable conversation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of need for just more conversation about that because, like, whatever the hell is the latest strategy to, like, pretend something isn't truth and then call it misinformation, make it disappear seems to be really, really insidious but boring. Like, I think they're trying to attach boring halos to things by just over commenting on stuff repetitively. Like, they're like, maybe if we say this thing with the right keywords over and over again, people get so sick of it they don't differentiate between our garbage and the truth.
That could be it.
Some more
on
good
that topic,
information out there, man.
On that topic, I'm excited for the social media one between our garbage and the truth. So we got some exciting shows coming up for July. Get your questions in there. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Great. So let's go ahead and jump into our questions. So our first question comes from an anonymous user, or their name is anonymous and they're really messing with us. We'll find out. Anon wants to know if any of you have any ideas related to using quantum computing or quantum encryption. This is not the typical run-of-the-mill crack the keys and steal Satoshi's corn. I mean something like quantum entanglement, time-shifted particles to cheat mining, and they're posting anonymous to donate the lot to the host. So thank you. And if it's not allowed,
it's totally allowed.
I'll fix it so it is. So
this is legal, but typically boring and overly detailed for most people to talk about. But if somebody wants to know, man, like
what?
You want to kick this one off?
The meaty nuances of crypto or of quantum computing and where it might run into trouble with crypto.
Oh heck yeah, man! What kind of? I know you've got some ideas about this of what it could be used for.
With like a basic explanation of quantum computing for people who just like know the cocktail party buzzword and like why it's special, and like there's a specific algorithm that's a really big threat to blockchains, and then everything else would just be like maybe type of security conjecture. But
it doesn't really exist.
Do you
quantum computing
go to the cup like spiel on what it is about quantum computing that makes it different from regular computing? And that'd be a good place to start.
I think the most important thing is just to like point out that it's just different. It's not necessarily faster. It just does things completely different. It's really good at some things, but regular computers are faster than quantum computers at some things too. And so one of the things quantum computers is really good at is deriving like the answer to something that a traditional computer would take eons to figure out. And one of those things is the private keys that private key pairs rely on, which is what Bitcoin and blockchain and all that was designed to use and stuff like that. So
for
it's a specific
on like
issue.
Who want to know high level or like low level stuff? Read up on Shor's equation or Shor's algorithm. SHOR. That's the one that if it worked today on quantum computers, they could actually build. Most of the world would be ready, and the sum total of all encryption would be whoever controlled the computers. Basically gigantic can jar.
Yeah. We're really far away from that, though. So
we are. In fact,
we're super far away
hypothetically, to even break RSA, they would need let's rewind a bit. We need to go back to the basics here. Quantum stuff. What does quantum mean, right? Like the idea that we're playing with here is actually kind of unknown. And I'm a fan of loop quantum gravity, so I'm going to stay away from spin foam oriented interpretation of this or like a timeless one and go with the standard model because it's, I hope there are other LQG people out there, but if there aren't, like, yay, say hi in the comments. If not, I don't expect there to be that many. Because I'm a fringe theorist on this. But setting that aside, the classical understanding is a quantum particle is the thing that makes up an atom. So you learned about the atoms in chemistry, right? You have like the core of it, the nucleus, and the electrons around it, and the number of electrons around it tell you what element it is, all that shit, right? You break that thing open, quantum level stuff doesn't fly out. Protons and neutrons fly out. Elementary atomic particles. You break those bastards open, out flies quantum stuff, right? To do that, like to even get at a theoretical grasp of what those look like, they have to build those colliders, those big electromagnetic tracks that you fire them up and they like dump 200 years worth of
it's hard to do.
Power the United States into 5 minutes, and then they get some readings, right? Pretty amazing. That people are not more pissed about that, but get super up in arms about Bitcoin's energy usage. Setting that aside, like what we know is you can create what are called qubits with a specialized version of this process. The qubit is a quantum bit. Regular bit has two states, right? Binary, 0 or 1, and you can do most math really fast with it. But there are certain kinds of maths you cannot do with the amount of energy or time left in the known universe under like the laws of entropy. Like it would take more energy than is in all the stars in the sky to break some of these things open without using binary math, right? You just can't solve these problems. Quantum computing allows you to assume a bit is both a 0 and a 1 simultaneously and still solve the overall math problem before you reveal its state. Which revealing state requires an observation that actually breaks the qubit. This is why we're not getting past 100 qubits anytime soon with error correction involved, like functional qubits, because error correction eats up a lot of them.
So that's like an engineering crash course into how quantum computers work, right?
I can
which
say
is great, but to so that we don't like that takes we could go on about that for a long time to try to explain how quantum computers work. I
The
think
really
not to
high
just
level,
completely
though,
cut
is
you
like
off. I just think
Shor's
it's
algorithm can't get solved without a quantum computer.
Yeah.
And you need Shor's algorithm to screw up everyday encryption.
so. Joe's got one, and all that time, Joe's got an answer to the question in chat already. But what do you think you would do? How would you use that to? What was the question? Using things like quantum entanglement. What would you use that's not just a boring crack Satoshi's keys kind of thing, right? What are some other things you could do
Not
if
as
you
much
have
as you
something?
think, right?
Yeah. So Joe's got one in
Entanglement
chat.
doesn't let you transmit information. That's the problem with it. It doesn't break the information light speed limit.
Well,
So
entanglement.
you can't do as much as you'd hope.
Entanglement is what Joe was talking about. If you have a fast-moving satellite in a miner, for example,
Right, that's the
we
problem.
know
You can't
that
do
you
that.
can travel forward in time. Could
Right.
you use entanglement to communicate across time like that?
Theoretically, but not practically, because in order to confirm that you got the right answer, you still have to go there at the speed of light to verify it before you get the right answer.
So you're saying that entanglement could not.
The prediction would beat you there, but it would still take you the speed of light to get there. You can go read read the outcome of this trick on the other side of the quantum entanglement gap, but you can't read that using a quantum entangled particle. So you can write, but you can't read into the future. That's actually kind of a really good summary of like why quantum is amazing. That a really kind of like, don't quote me on that level, but it's like a lay understanding. It writes into the future and then you can read it in real time.
I think that it's such a
Pretty metaphor. It's probably wrong.
It's such a difficult thing to grasp. Even the time shifting, like in the question, talking about time shifts and stuff like that. The idea of time travel is still something that most people chalk up to science fiction. We know we can go forward in time. We even have world records for the person who's traveled the furthest
Here's a
in
question
time.
for you, though. Is
But
time
the
even
usefulness of it, right, is the question.
Time just a vagary of human perception? Is my
Right.
question.
That's not the topic we're on,
Yeah.
but I see what you're saying.
Totally.
You know,
Loop quantum gravity has a timeless solution that you dispense with time first, and then you can solve a whole bunch of shit. That's why I like it.
I think it's the perfect image for this question. Is this like the stoner dude? Like, this is the kind of stuff that it's already confusing, but once you start like really trying to break it apart with a room full of people, it's like, wait a minute, are you saying that? So my answer is that it's kind of boring, but basically it's the same thing as cracking keys is why it's boring, because you wouldn't need to do time shifting and satellites and time travel and quantum entanglement communication and all that. You would just need to know you would just need to figure out the block faster than everybody else while you're mining. And if you have a quantum machine that can do that, you can just mine faster than everybody else. You would have to change the way that Bitcoin mining works. This is the whole thing with quantum computing. Once you have like fault tolerant quantum computing of a certain qubit size, I think IBM's is like 27 or something right now. If I remember what, I forget his name. I think like 128 or something is like this threshold, something like that. We're a little bit away from it. We need more qubits, and we need it to be fault tolerant, neither of which we have yet, but we're getting there. So once that happens,
becomes a more error checking than building more problem at 120.
Yeah. So once that happens, everything that we're building with as far as encryption goes, including Bitcoin, has to change, because mining is broken. The reason that mining is hard is because it's done with one type of computer, and if that type of computer is made obsolete, at least in the application of this specific problem, then we have to change everything.
I would say blockchain people are your least of your worries. It's more like the people at the boring ass DNS host that doesn't really do a good job of keeping up the patches.
Oh, sure.
That is like most people running the internet all over the world. Like,
I'm not saying
we're not going to make a patch date, right?
Yeah, there's massive implications, right? It's just that in the context of blockchain, why is it important? It's because we base the security of blockchain on the same thing that the government bases the security of its top secret files over the internet kind of thing on, right? All that gets broken.
And all the
So
other bits of it are dependent components. So if some lower level part of the internet breaks, it can still really hose over blockchain usage, right? Like hopefully your 12 words aren't screenshotted into your iPhotos library, because if Apple can get that encryption up to speed in your host.
So Lisa, we've been Greg and I've been back and forth. I think that the question is hard to answer because that is the issue, right? That's the one problem, is cracking keys. What have you heard about, like, people that are concerned about the implications of quantum and stuff like that? I just want to shut us up for a second and give you a minute to talk.
It's okay. I mean, I've heard that it's not possible, that it's not going to happen. So I haven't put a lot of energy into it, to be honest. I know the government's working on it. There's a quantum.gov website that I shared in the private chat, but I don't know. I'm just don't put a lot of energy.
Lisa, I feel like it's a good instinct. It's right now, it's a lot of pseudoscience and conjecture at the moment. Like, really, the threat is like a fun math problem for people who like complicated math. At this point, like, people who build the theories that made AI work in the 50s technically figured out stuff we're using today. They just couldn't build computers for the next 70 or 80 years that could actually run them. And that's kind of where a lot of quantum.
I mean, is it the same story that we went to the moon, though? I mean, or is it something that's actually going to happen? I don't know.
They're running into some pretty hard engineering challenges, as I understand it. And there's like a sort of silo problem, because nobody wants to tip a hand at what they think their fix to the problem is going to be. So people are playing secret instead of open source. Like, if they open sourced a quantum architecture, I'd get worried. If they don't, then they're probably basically not telling the guy who has the missing piece to the puzzle that there's even a puzzle to solve.
And is this something that they think AI is going to help them
probably
leap to
foolishly,
the solution?
Honestly. AI is really suck at doing math right now. Like, regular computers are way better. We had AI for math, like when we invented the microprocessor.
But I guess AI can only learn what you teach it. It can't self-learn. It can't learn more than what a human
something on
has
the internet
entered.
and figure out an orthodox solution that solves the error check problem.
Right.
I think the exciting part is like what we don't know. We didn't build computers thinking that we were going to make the internet. So I was like, we didn't build quantum computers, and we built quantum computers, but we don't know what we're going to be able to do with them in the future. Right now, like you said, we're just solving math problems. All the theories that we had are kind of finding a way to test out. So finding the application is kind of going to be the interesting part in the future.
Right. I don't want to, whiz all over the field, though, right? Like, it does some really powerful things that I think are public goods that are worth mentioning, right? Like, it inspires people to get super interested in science and learn the really hard math if they are interested in the theory. Like, you hear quantum theory, you get hooked. You're like, holy crap, I need to understand calculus. And that can happen to you in like junior high. That's amazing. Quantum is powerful in that way, especially if you're like, I want to solve the quantum computer problem. Like, I always talk about solving big problems, and people should try. If you're inspired to solve this, you got a lot of work in front of you, but I say go do it.
The coolest thing to me about quantum computers is that we don't necessarily need to understand how they work to make them useful. It's like gravity. We don't have a consensus of an understanding about how gravity even works at all, but we do know how to interact with it, and we can build things that follow the rules of how gravity works.
One caveat there, though, right?
Interaction wise. And with quantum computers, we don't have a great understanding of how exactly they work in general, but we can still observe how to interact with it and how to make it produce things that are useful. And because of that, we can build it without needing to understand on the level that we would like to what exactly is going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and I think I would caution one thing on that, Dave, because I think that's true. I think it's kind of true. But I think with quantum, there's a special risk that we are imagining the whole thing, that we actually just don't have the ability to intentionally understand the world at that level of detail. And so we are inventing the best thing our brain can invent. and quantum is more like an analysis of neuron structure than it is an analysis of the way the universe works at a fundamental level. Like, there's no really way to disprove that theoretically right now, and yeah, I don't believe that. It's kind of like
this is where it gets into like a really good.
I withhold belief, but like it
this
could still turn out to be us playing weird games with our heads. With quantum.
This is where it gets to be like a really good conversation for the new philosophy layer on DIN. I'll plug DIN because this is an area where you can really get like what is reality kind of thing, which is out of, I think, the context of what we're talking about here.
It was this question that led me to loop quantum gravity, and I think people should look at that closer.
Yeah, that's how we always do it on this show. The first question's always, we answer all of the questions in the first question, and then we just try to see how many other questions we can get through. Let's go to the next question. I don't know if we answered this one or not, but I feel like we threw out enough answers that there's probably one in there. Great. So I was told that we didn't need to worry about quantum computing and our crypto portfolios. They said once the tech is figured out, the blockchains will incorporate it into their cryptography. I think, for example, that a raid essentially could happen if a government developed quantum computers to hack private keys. This would essentially make the crypto worth zero. Imagine if Satoshi's Nakamoto's Bitcoin address was hacked using a quantum computer. What would that do to Bitcoin and its price? I think this question's from I Am from Am. Could this happen?
Because there's a quantum complication to the question with Schrodinger's paradox.
We'll find out. Could this happen? And when government agencies then attack or hack privacy coins and privacy sites? Scary shit. Because I would think governments using AI would be the first to develop quantum computers to attack privacy in rogue markets. Follow the money. It's all about power and control. Imagine all the data a government could store and quickly access it on its people.
I think corrupt bureaucrats and broken legal processes are probably a more cost-effective and timely version of a thing that could kill the industry, right? I really hope that they're investing more money into trying to break Bitcoin in however many years it takes to get to 1 million qubits. Like, if they're doing that, then we already won, because there are hard research problems they can't solve. Whereas upgrading crypto to be quantum safe is just a lot of work. It's like Y2K for upgrading encryption systems, basically. Like, we know how to do it. We just haven't done it because it's different algorithms than we chose originally.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think they've already
we have an engineering
complicated
process that
enough.
can be iterative and at scale, and got like a one-shot quantum zero day that they could use to hypothetically kill a token if they could make a theoretical advance that nobody else would follow. Like, to me, if they're dumb enough to try it, I hope they do.
Lisa, what do you
I
think
hope that's
about
the magic bullet, because they're going to fail hard. It'd be funny. Like, health.gov people are going to do this, right?
Lisa, what do you think?
I don't think they would be motivated to kill crypto. I think they've confiscated enough, and they've been mining it at the NSA, is my understanding, for so long. But I don't, and they've been hacking our privacy. They don't need quantum to hack our privacy, or to shut down our way of, they're going to roll out FedNow, and all that ISO 20022 is rolling out in July. That's all happening without quantum. So,
and the country that we're defending democracy in with a proxy war just canceled democracy, and we're still saying the same thing and sending more money. So we kind of have like a basic
voting in Ukraine.
We should like try to stand up to the current issues before we worry about this one. In fact, worrying about this one is probably drawing energy from important now issues.
We're not talking about current events yet.
We're not. You have to hang around till after the show, which is where we will talk about current events.
You want to save the world, you should hang around for the after show, because that's where we're going to talk about stuff you can actually do now that probably.
But also listen to this part of the show. Don't leave this show. Don't leave this one and wait for don't fast forward. Stay here. Okay.
Do some complexity push-ups first, and then we'll get to the candy.
There you go. I think this is interesting too, because I think you're always going to have whatever it is, like whether it's government agencies or just hackers online or whatever it is. There's always going to be malicious intent with any technology that comes out, but then there's also going to be people on the other side fighting against that, whatever malicious intent that is. So hopefully, like, the more technology comes out, the more we're also able to observe other people using that technology. So for whatever it is. So hopefully there's understanding on both sides of this. Dave, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, a little bit. I think it's interesting. A couple of times we've talked about AI, even though that was a topic for a different week. It's interesting to talk about AI in the context here. I think we have sort of a trifecta happening right now with AI and with decentralization, including cryptocurrency, and the emergence of potentially nation states having access to a quantum computer. And privacy is discussed in this question a lot. And I've been thinking about, there's a lot of things with privacy that are good enough, because unless you're being targeted by a nation state with that, that kind of resources, you don't really have to be super tinfoil hat paranoid about everything you do. Because unless you're doing something that's really, disruptive and dangerous to a nation, you're probably not going to be targeted. And a lot of people operate like that. You know what I mean? Like, nobody really cares that you downloaded Ant-Man except Hollywood. They're not gonna target you as a nation because you downloaded a car or something like that. But we're getting into an area where, with AI being something that never sleeps and is very good at pattern recognition, a government could use that to target everyone, right? At the same time, you could efficiently snoop on everybody and use things like a quantum computer to start decrypting people's private communications, where the AI says, oh, maybe there's something here, right? So you get into a world that's a little bit potentially dystopian, where you really do have to be a little more tinfoil hatty about everything that you do, if you're going to do anything at all that the governments don't like. And I'm not just talking about U.S. government. We live in a truly dangerous world, depending on who you are. If you're in Iran, or if you're in North Korea, or if you're in China, if you're in a nation that targets people who simply
Canada, right?
don't want to wear, don't want to wear headscarves, or want to have, better civil liberties or human rights. Some countries really do crack down on protesters violently and kill them, right? So it is an issue. So when you talk about governments now having access to really efficient ways to monitor every individual person in a way that previously they would have to expend a lot more resources and time to figure out who, where to target people. Kind of everyone now is potentially subject to not having any privacy at all. And
we already don't. Like, let's be frank. Unless you're a really gifted technical actor and you're being careful and you're lucky, right? You have no privacy. The only reason you have a feeling of privacy is because no one's interested in looking at your past. But the second you do something that draws their attention, you are probably less than an authorized order away from having all of that shit laid bare before whichever people want to strategize about how to tear you down, right? Like, that is the world we live in. It sounds awful and terrifying, but that is the world we live in.
Sean's not here, but I'll bring up something he said last time. He was talking about something that's even happening in the U.S., which is things that were previously legal being made illegal, or potentially being made illegal, where you could become a criminal after the fact because of something that you did in the past. So it isn't even a situation where it's like, oh, as long as I'm following the rules, I'll be fine. Well, the rules change, So I don't know. It just seems like
monitor us all. There is one bright spot, though. I don't want to end on that downer.
It seems like the answer to could this happen is maybe, and if it does, then yeah, that's a different world. It's a completely different world, because all I'm glad I could take Sean's role on that one.
Well,
So there we
and
go.
honestly, we
That's
should
what I think.
play around with the ideas, right? Like one thing that security researchers do all the time, it feels like a cheat at work because it's so fun to do, is war game out scenarios, right? Let's play one of these out real quick just for fun. I just want to show you guys what this is because you should do this to every security question and you'll actually get better security from it.
Okay, Greg, I'll be the other side. So you be one side of the war.
Okay,
and I'll
here
be the other
is
side.
the situation. The government secretly has the capacity to run Shor's algorithm in an alien technology-derived quantum computer they've buried in the desert.
Okay.
They can run it secretly, and we don't know. But they can. But they still have like sort of the nature of reality and strategy of today in computer security to deal with, right? What do they do?
Great.
If
So
you're
this
them
is-
and you have that, what would you do?
So I would do what I'm already doing. I print everything that I have onto a piece of paper and I put it in a binder. So I keep
No.
analog.
You're them. How do you exploit everyone?
Oh, how do I exploit everybody? I go
This is
into
the
their
game.
house.
You pretend you're your enemy.
I break into their house
Find
while
their
they're either
binder.
I break into their house while they're either asleep or at work, and I go into their house and I find their binder. And I take their binder and I make a photocopy of it. I have a photocopy machine with me. I take a photocopy. I physically reprint the binder too. I don't just take pictures and put it into a cloud for the NSA. No, I'm gonna like physically make a copy of it because
Okay.
there might be small things that we don't. It could be like invisible ink on it, and you
Have
have
you
to have a
considered the
photocopy.
possibility that
Yeah.
that's pretty smart because if you used your quantum computer capacity one time, then everybody would start upgrading and it wouldn't be an advantage anymore very quickly.
Exactly. So I would use a quantum computer to break in so that they have
It's
like,
like a
code.
0-day bug. They get kind of one shot while people update.
Yeah, if they have like a password code on their front door or something, or some kind of encryption on their door, and it's like a keyless entry, I would use that code quantum computer to hack the code. But I don't want them to know that I used a quantum computer, so then I would break down the door to hide that fact.
Maybe that's the real.
I'd be saving it for if I needed to shut off somebody's nuclear arsenal.
That's probably a smarter choice.
Lisa, maybe that's the real psyop. They're making us think that quantum computers don't exist. Because really, wouldn't they want us to not know about it? Because as soon as they used it, we'd all freak out and start protecting ourselves. Maybe it's all a ploy to make us think it's not real.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it lasts only as long
but
as you don't use it. So, like, the threat of it being out there isn't helping you either. They would tell people.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry I keep calling you out, Lisa. You're just you're like my favorite conspiracy friend to talk
Thank
about those
you.
ideas with. So
Thank you.
I still think that the government's going to break in and steal your family pictures. So watch out. All those pictures that you didn't put on Instagram and Facebook, they still want those too. Let's go to the next question. Let's check that one out. Let's see what we got. What else we got? There were a lot of questions, so I want to try to get to all of them. So yeah, make sure you go in there and check out the other questions that we didn't happen to get to. I'm not going to read all of what I Am for AM says about quantum computing. I can't. I'm not going to read his explanation but thank you for putting it in there. If you want to know,
Great information.
yeah, it's great information. Before this to prepare, I watched The Wired explain it to me in 5 different ways of what quantum computing is. So that was fun.
did you get anything out of that? Did it help?
Oh yeah, it was super helpful. I loved it. I really learned a lot from that. Yeah, sounds good.
I think it's a lot more productive to talk about what the implications of quantum computing are than trying to dive into what it is and how it works as far as like time use, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's super interesting and fun, and I'm super glad that I'm not the one working on it because it hurts my brain to think about. Speaking of which, I actually there's like open source like quantum computers that you can actually access online.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
Yeah, like
That's
IBM has theirs up and stuff like that, so you can actually go and mess with it. So I actually where's it at?
How's that possible?
I went and asked. Well, it's like in a cloud, so I'm sure it's a much like smaller database or whatever for it. But I asked the quantum computer some questions before, so I figured we can like kind of see what those answers were and see if you're smart. If you're gonna have like the same answer as the quantum computer, see what you think.
This is like, are you smarter than a fifth grader? But are you smarter than a quantum computer?
Yeah,
This is just going to be like a bunch of quantum random number generator rolls.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the question is. What is the price of Bitcoin going to be in 5 years? I asked it, so we'll see what.
Oh yeah, you want us to take a shot at answering it and see if?
Take a guess.
All right.
What's your quick prediction? And then
this is great. My quick prediction in 5 years. In 5 years, it's $250,000, $250K. That's my prediction.
Lisa, do you have a guess?
One IP.
One internet point. I love it.
One IP, one intellectual property.
Okay. That's the currency we use in 5 years.
Trading internet, intellectual property within 5 years.
I'm gonna go with 0.000175 ETH.
Interesting. That might be the closest answer. It just showed me a picture of Ethereum. So I don't know what that means, but that's what it told me. I figured
I'm just getting your goat.
It must be run by the SEC.
I actually think it's going to be worse.
That's actually a more of a brilliant answer than on the face. No, the price of Bitcoin being Ethereum philosophically, I think is an interesting response, because Bitcoin was invented, and then like if you look at what like the maximalists seething and raging against Ethereum existing, that's the price of Bitcoin. Ethereum was like, oh well, if you can do that, you can do this, this, and this. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's how I interpret that answer.
I got a fun turn event on that. Remind me later about Maxi approach. The Maxi approach to networking value that is not panning out.
I love it. That's great. I'd love to go around and around on that.
Also, a picture's worth 1,000 words, so I feel like they told us a lot more with a picture than just writing a couple words. So I think that's the other reason why the quantum computer did that. What is an example of quantum encryption? So I wanted to like, hey, what would quantum encryption look like?
To be clear, do you mean quantum safe encryption or post-quantum crypto?
Either one.
Same thing.
I think they're both quantum encryptions. It's post crypto encryption is still going to have to be like probably quantum encryption.
Yeah, it's encryption that works with quantum stuff existing.
Right.
What is an example of quantum encryption?
Yeah, what's an example? I asked you to like give me an example.
An example is yes. I don't know how to answer that.
That's fine. Hey, you're not a quantum computer. I get it. If you can't give me an answer, that's what I would expect.
And everybody can Wikipedia deep dive on more, but like the one or two that I researched, like I personally thought lattice-based sounded cooler. So lattice-based schemas. There's one called Goldreich, Goldwasser, and Halevi. The math behind it is just terrifying because it uses symbols that you probably don't use every day. So you have to look them up while you're thinking about the numbers or thinking about the abstract concepts behind it. Don't read it unless you like that kind of stuff. But you can deep dive, and there are just tons of them, and they will link out to the open source code if you actually want to play with them. They're there.
Lisa, do you have a guess?
No.
That's fair. This is a hard question. It just told me to pronounce what show this guy is from. That's all it is. So
the Berenstain Bears.
It's a Berenstain Bear, technically.
Berenstain, right? Berenstain.
Exactly. We don't even know.
Steen is the Mandela effect. That never existed.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Berenstain or whatever it is, but who knows? It just depends on which quantum realm you're in. We'll find out. What are ways that we can reduce the effects of climate change? Right.
Oh dear
This isn't snarky, just for fun.
Please.
You can
do you
totally
think any of
turn
this is
off
real?
your TV. You can turn off your TV. You can read historic weather patterns. The effects of climate change are unpalpable at the moment.
You could stop
there,
using solar
they're
panels
measurable,
that
they're
damage
subtle.
the earth.
They're trying to mix public policy with you remember what they said, like, what if coronavirus is this bad? You try masks just in case, and it was compelling enough to get most people to wear masks, right? Like, now we can talk about this on YouTube again. It's cool. It's a great example. They're trying to do the same thing with the climate change because the real dangerous hypothetical risks are modeled out past 100 years right now still. Like, it's past 21, where we're uncertain enough about the change impacts that they become really a hypothetical threat in worst case scenarios. But worst case scenario risk based decision making is not a really good way to do a calm public policy debate. So
I think the answer is to stop squabbling over whether or not it's man-made and acknowledge that it exists.
Read some shit that is hard to read until you get it, is the answer.
Well, do you want to see what it told me? It said just don't use plastic straws. That's what it told me. Don't use plastic straw. It just gave me this picture. That's all it was.
That's all you get.
And then the last question. This is the one that Dave asked me. He wanted me to ask the computer, and I said I would. He said, "What is John McAfee's dead switch password?" Anybody have a guess on what it could be?
Oh, what's his password? Yeah.
Hashtag whacked.
Yeah.
His tattoo.
His password is by Monero.
That's not super far away from it. It is up, down, left, right, BA start. That's what it told me to try, so we'll try it out.
That's genius.
If you have access to it, give this one a shot and see what it says. But that's
I love the idea that you would have to run it through like a retro console for the input to work for the password.
Right.
Yeah. You've got to use a wireless Logitech
with 2 RCA jacks only. DVI will not work.
You've got to use a wireless Logitech old school NES controller.
Yeah,
You could, I guess, have like an NAS cartridge that was your hardware wallet. You have to put in the password on the controller and it displays a QR code for you if you unlock it.
I think that's more safe than random words put together. I'll forget that, but I'm not going to lose the muscle memory on my NES. Like, we're good. I'll remember that password forever. All right. Do we have? I know we had like a whole bunch of questions. I don't know if we had any more that we wanted to go through today. So let's see.
I feel like there's one other quantum idea we should totally hit before we leave it behind. But I can't remember what it was.
I think the rest of them was threaded under different questions.
At all, did we? Is the cat ever dead?
Is the cat
ever
dead?
Nope, that was it. The rest of it is just conversation under the existing questions.
Okay, that's great.
Cool.
I like the NSA worker graphic.
Anything else that we want to talk about relating to quantum computers at all?
I have a question. Oh, there is. All of us have something.
We all have something.
Let's see it.
We all spoke at once. Can Lisa go first?
Lisa, go first.
So what would be, we went down some like negative rabbit holes or whatever, like fear porn kind of stuff, but what would be like a positive use case? What would be the most positive? Like, could quantum computing, cure cancer or come up with a solution for world hunger or something like that? Is that a possibility?
Yeah.
One of the most amazing things it does is energy efficiency. Like, you put, optimization techniques in place that in the right use cases can make batteries a non-rechargeable thing you seal up inside a thing without even changing lithium-ion tech. Like, you could put a quantum CPU in a handheld device if you could get that small. I don't know if you ever do that. Hypothetically, if we could build them to the way computers are today, we could have devices.
Yeah, if you have like room temperature superconductors and maybe we get there one day.
Sensors, like, amazing stuff will happen.
I think one of the things could potentially be I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Folding at Home project. It's like a decentralized protein folding where you can basically donate your CPU power to help scientists discover ways to cure certain diseases and stuff. That seems like a cool way to use a quantum computer. I don't know enough about it to know if that particular problem would work, but it seems like it is compatible with the way the types of problems that quantum computers work. Because my question was actually going to be like, what other stuff besides breaking public-private key encryption, what other problems could it be better at than a traditional computer? And I feel like protein folding is one of them, to figure out what shapes we need to fit in to solve problems medically.
I feel like it might also not be, though. I'm afraid that one might be like too many permutations. Like, you get some efficiency out of it, like more folds per PlayStation, but not necessarily a faster resolution of all protein shapes.
Well, that's the kind of the idea with quantum computers, though, right? You can take all the existing possibilities and wipe away the ones that are less likely, and you end up with not necessarily an answer, but a high probability that this is the answer. And if it doesn't work, you try again.
The ones we really want to point it at are stuff that if we asked a computer to do now or anytime in the future, as long as it was a standard CPU, the answer would be, you just broke the computer, blue screen of death, kernel panic, right? Like, the questions that it can answer that no other computer can answer, right? I'm curious about what that architecture question is. I haven't looked into it that much for you guys.
That's where my interest is too, is what other stuff besides breaking encryption for, privacy and stuff, what other stuff?
I know it's sort of good for set math. Like, you can do combinatorics problems a lot faster with it.
So quantum computers are really good at like modeling. Is kind of like they're good. They're used for like modeling nature and modeling things because you can because of entanglement, right? Where you can have one thing relying on the other, right? And then also you can show the possibilities of one answer being true and another answer being true. So you're able to use it to model what you want it to model. So I think it would definitely work with like cancer research is on there. For sure.
I personally think we're going to solve that one before we ever get a quantum computer working at that scale, though.
Well, that'd be cool. Nobody's going to be sad about that.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's a lot of things that it'll be able to help us out with. Anybody want to guess the highest number of qubits in a quantum computer? So qubit is a quantum bit. What's the highest number of qubits?
Functional or like just error checkers?
With that has a fault margin that we're able to use. How about that?
Last I heard, IBM had one that got to like over 400. I'm gonna say.
Oh, really?
IBM has Osprey, which is 433.
No kidding, really? Because I was gonna guess. This is how behind I am. I was gonna guess in the 40s. I was a factor of 10 off.
But right now they're supposed to unveil one that's 1,000 qubits.
Interesting.
So IBM has the highest. It's like 400.
Who's doing that?
IBM.
So isn't the issue that until we get to a certain number of qubits, there's like it doesn't outperform traditional computers really? Like the usefulness of it, is that kind of the issue?
It's depending on what it is.
Okay.
So like more efficient at like Greg has been saying, like either modeling things or solving math problems that you have to use quantum theory and quantum ideas with.
Well, I mean, the like for instance, are you familiar with the sort of nobody is. Okay, so the basic ideas behind machine learning were invented in the 50s. Like the technology that blew up in the 2010s in one go for the first time against a Go champion, those were literally hanging out on shelves where somebody already did the hard problems of figuring out how the math should work if you had a computer that could run it. And then one day we had a computer that could run it, right? And they tested it and they held up. But somebody had already done the math on a blackboard, right? This is sort of similar to where we are with quantum computers. Like we know what they could do if we could run them big enough. Yeah. But we just can't build one.
And so to put it in a little bit of perspective, right? We are at IBM is trying to come out with 1,000 qubits quantum computer, which I haven't seen anything about it being released. That's just like the next margin they're doing.
Mhm.
And they're saying with current technology, they can only do 5,000 qubits is the highest they would be able to do. And I think to solve Shor's equation, to use Shor's equation,
Millions, hypothetically,
which is the algorithm that's supposed to crack encryption, you need 1 million qubits.
So we know we know on paper where we need to be for it to impact certain things, and we know theoretically with current materials science where our limits are that we could theoretically create it, and we haven't even reached that yet. So that's how far away we still are.
But it doesn't flip the equation on the universe favors secrecy, right? Like we have quantum proof encryption algorithms we just don't use right now because we don't need them.
Yeah.
We do not have a machine that could do that yet. It's like overkill at the moment. If we got to the point where it's looking like overkill was no longer just you could delete the over from overkill and they're about to get it. Like we could build the security in before they could get the first one on the market.
Right. Dragon Chain has quantum resistant encryption. There's a couple of other projects that have quantum resistant solutions too. So the readiness, and that's the thing that is also important to consider, is that today already, because we know that eventually we'll probably get there, we're already just saving everything. We're downloading everything. We're archiving everything, even if we can't break it yet. And when I say everything, I mean like China's saving everything that they record from the US. The US is saving everything it can get from China and Russia. All of us are saving each other's secrets, even if we can't decrypt them yet. Because the moment we can, we'll be able to go back and fish through all that data and see what our competing nations have been saying the whole time. Right. Even if we can't yet, we're already downloading everything. We're already archiving everything.
That's why their going dark scare marketing strategy is a bad metaphor, really, for what they're doing, because they're keeping all the encrypted data, right?
Yeah. So it isn't.
They have a light bulb they don't know how to turn on yet.
Depending on who you are and what you're trying to keep secret, it doesn't matter that we can't break it yet. That doesn't mean you're safe. It just means that like you better start encrypting it with quantum safe encryption or quantum resistant encryption today, because even if it takes 20 years, if you care in 20 years, if somebody knows what you were, keeping secret 20 years ago, if you care about that, you need to be starting to do it right now. So if it's from a national security perspective, you're not going to know as a nation. You're not going to know when the first one's able to do it, because that zero day problem that Greg mentioned, as soon as somebody publicly announces, "Oh, we got it and it works," then everybody knows and it's a different game. So
that's a run far, far away from quantum bike shedding your security. Right? Like, do not do quantum security for yourself until you've checked all of the things that actually matter now, and that can matter tomorrow. There are 1,000 things you're screwing up that are way less boring, or way more boring and way easier to fix than your future hypothetical quantum privacy against hypothetical future quantum threat actors, right? Like, you're engaging in a game of sort of mental maypole chasing, right? Not really a problem today, and we don't even know what it's going to look like when it does become a real problem. So, check to make sure your passwords are strong right now. That's probably a better use of security.
Well, that's what I said. Depending on who you are and what kind of data you're trying to keep safe. If you're trying to keep everything that's at Area 51 out of the purview of competing nations around the world, you're probably going to worry about this. If you're trying to keep your porn collection from your mom, it's not that big of a deal, right? It just depends on who you are and what you're trying. You got to use some logic there.
Yeah. Your mom may get a home quantum computer in 200 years, and then she can chastise you about your porn habits that are probably absurdly tame from 200 years ago.
But NIST is working on it. There's a competition, and it takes years. But NIST is standardizing that stuff right now, trying to figure out what they're going to use as the standard.
What are you saying, NIST?
NIST, yeah, it's what is it? Institute for Standards Technology?
Oh, okay.
Standards and T. What does that stand for?
Technology. I'll just go with technology.
Okay.
But it's standards that are used like, okay, if you have a government system that has top secret information on it, you have a certain standard that you have to meet to keep that safe. So one of the things would be if we're going to standardize, okay, now we have to use quantum resistant encryption. What does that mean? What is quantum? That was one of the questions here today, actually. What does that even look like? That's one of the questions that even the US government hasn't answered yet. What is that? What's going to be the standard? That kind of thing.
And that's why I think the standard should be to print out all of your porn onto pieces of paper. That's what I say.
Just be a peeping Tom, like go really analog.
You make everything extremely analog. Everything's analog. I don't use a phone anymore. I've just got tin cans around the city that people walk up to and they speak into it, and it's attached to a string to the can in my house. So I do.
Actually,
it's a literal land.
Want to check out something really cool on security? You guys remember Jacob Applebaum from back in the day? Before, like, there's a whole fun site I have to read about it if you like that. But
Jacob Applebaum, he
does a really cool current YouTube series called Interviews with the Hobo, and where he talks about this guy who's like literally like a hermit who lives in Interviews with a Hermit, where he like lives in a cave and talks about secrecy, like he's obsessed with it, and he interviews with Applebaum, who's like
different guy,
right? Who used to work with Assange on WikiLeaks and a whole bunch of other things. Really smart dude, knows his stuff better than most people probably ever forgot, right? But cool YouTube series if you want to get some really good practical security advice, because it really walks you through the like, what are the costs of privacy versus the costs of, or the risk that I'm actually facing? Because it's really more like, principle number one is there's no perfect security, and the game is to drive up the cost on your adversaries.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd heard the name before. I wasn't sure where. Apparently, he's the only member to ever get kicked out of the Cult of the Dead Cow. So that's an interesting,
but that was also
interesting
part
legacy.
of the CIA operation. If you look closely,
I'll have to read up on that.
He made too much noise about them hiring a former CIA official on the Tor project. I found a great.
It's not what Wikipedia says, but okay.
Yeah, Wikipedia says a lot of bullshit, though.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we're going to be out of here. That's been the show. That's been Well Blockchain Roundtable, quantum computers and encryption episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Distant, aka Dave, anything you'd like to plug or let people know about?
Oh man, I would like to plug Dragon Chain's legal fund. I think it's legalfund.dragonchain.com. So it's not going to be resolved in the very near future, but maybe the end of the year, beginning of next year, we'll start seeing some stuff about it. Big old waiting game. You know how government can be as far as speeding things along. But I'm really interested to see what happens with, I want to plug the XRP case. Pay attention to it. I want to plug anybody who is working on what am I trying to say? I want to just say, like, pay attention to what's happening with cryptocurrency and blockchain in the US today. Follow every case, including Dragon Chains, including Ripple's. Pay attention to what happened to Library.
And be wary
because it's going to really
that the enemy is another token.
And more broadly, just in the world, because regardless of what we do here in the U.S., we like to think that we're the only people in the world sometimes. But it's going to impact global geopolitics. And so I don't know. Quantum computing is really fun to think about. AI as well, stuff like that. But really, this shift into decentralization and cryptocurrency and how different nations deal with that is going to do a lot sooner to change the way that things are than quantum computers, I think. So shout out to everybody doing that.
Greg, anything you'd like to plug or let people know about?
I would say, I try to hit people with a little reality on quantum because it's super scary to think about some of these things as a threat. And yeah, there's legitimate threats and opportunities in any tech. It's how you use it. And if you're interested in it, the answer is not to question your interest or get scared. It's to get focused on it, to understand it more, and to get involved with it. Because if you want it to be good in your conception of it, then you should be on the front lines. So, do that. Do the same thing that you would do to build a blockchain project on Rivet. Find your resources, start building, and find people who can help. And I love talking about quantum. So whether you're building a blockchain project or just want to talk about quantum theory shit, I'll be more wrong than right with you on any conversation that you're interested in, because I love that stuff.
When's the Greg Rogan experience coming out?
Well, I've got some exciting new guests that I can't announce because they're swearing me to secrecy until after they see the actual show recordings. But we're moving forward, and I'm going to guesstimate roughly season 1 will be dropping sometime in Q1 2024. That's my target for like
time for elections.
It's gonna pop out like week after week after week, new episodes like Rogan does.
Cool.
Q1 of 2024 is January, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
6 months from now.
Yeah. So
right. Right now, like my studio sucks, and like I don't have a lot of stuff figured out. So,
all right. Well, if you need help with that, let me know. Because my studio sucks also. No, my studio is great. Lisa, anything you'd like to plug or let us know about?
Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit on what Distant said. Right now, John Deaton posted, he's trying to petition the court to get the opportunity for amicus briefs to be filed in the XRP case to advocate for token holders in the secondary market, similar to what the very DAO, we filed one for token holders in the secondary market in the library case. So you can go, there's a form pinned on his Twitter and on his website. It's cryptolaw.us, I think, or something like that. But you can go to his Twitter. It's real easy to find and fill out that form and help fight the good fight for freedom and truth, transparency.
Sounds
So.
great. And sounds great. I've been your host, John Branch. I'd like to plug eat something weird today. Order from a place you haven't had food from before. Get something interesting. Tickle your taste buds. All right. Let them feel something new out there. Let them feel something new.
Up on that, man.
Yeah. I got to remind people, have some weird food. It's delicious. And if it's not, you can order Chinese food. Great. Thanks for joining us. Next week's theme is going to be blockchain and whistleblowers. So I know this is going to be a fun one for our panel. Come check it out. Leave us a question that's blockchain related or on the topic or about whatever else you want us to talk about. We'd love to hear from you in our topics and in our chat. Don't forget to share this episode. The more you share, the more the host and topic contributors get. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, let us know what you're thinking, and stick around for current events happening right after this. Bye.
America's not the government, people. The America is you. It is the Grand fucking Canyon, the Rocky Mountains, the deserts of the Southwest, the Pacific fucking Ocean, the Atlantic fucking Ocean. It is the grandest continent. And what the fuck have you people done? You have turned yourself into sheep, every goddamn one of you.
That's a fun one.
I like the McAfee outro. That goes with the McAfee topic inside of the show.
Hell yeah, man.
Such an interesting person. I really wish I would have got a chance to meet him in person, man. That dude was such an interesting guy.
It's a good perspective to keep, though. The whole America's not the government and the America is you sort of thing. That's kind of the whole point, right? Isn't that the whole point of the USA?
Well, I mean, and he obviously had an impact. If you listen to what he was saying during his presidential run, and you listen to what RFK, who's the credible candidate right now, pretty much, right? He's more credible than they want to admit. Is saying a lot of the same things he was. You got to know that he was listening to him.
It is interesting to see.
Ideas quickly can become.
Yeah, I think RFK is an interesting candidate. Like, this not to like we've got next year to talk about all this too, but it's interesting to start seeing how the candidates are lining up. Annoying too, but also interesting.
Yeah.
It's terrible that the Dems are saying they won't do just like Ukraine's shutting down the voting. Now the Dems are saying that they're not going to have any debates, which I'm sure
that's pretty normal though, right? Isn't it pretty normal that the party that already is in office doesn't have debates?
It's the only way
it's only the opposing party.
Where their definition of that is we stay in power always while there's an appearance of legitimacy.
Like I'm not an expert, but I don't think that the party that's in power, that is in office, that is in the White House, typically has debates during the election.
They've historically never dishonored a candidate.
Am I wrong about that? I could be.
Enough voting power.
Because they always have like the PAC at right.
Maybe I'm off base.
Do you think people that support RFK like hardcore and really want to hear them debate? Do you think that they're gonna just like, I guess anything's better than whoever the other side has? We're gonna stay on Team Blue.
I think it could unify the country.
I don't think most people are gonna you insult a lot of people that way if you don't give their person a chance to talk. And he's got 20% of the preliminary polling. It's early, but that's big. They've let people debate that had less than that by a lot, I think.
Wait, so what Lisa, you're saying that they're not going to have presidential debates
or something like that?
For the Democratic, the DNC.
The DNC isn't going to have in-house debates.
Right.
I think you're not going to end up getting away with that, in my opinion. And I don't think
he says anyway.
And I also don't. It's probably because they don't want Biden, talking into a microphone for an hour.
Well, he's going to be in jail soon, hopefully. Yeah. I mean, if he's alive.
This is going to make it that far.
They're deposing Hunter today for the laptop. He's in Delaware being deposed today. And
Biden's these days. He's making me nervous about instead of election where he debates or a primary where he debates anybody, it's going to be more like a state funeral followed by a debate between whoever and his VP. I hate to be macabre about it because I really think it's I think aging is a tragedy and a sad thing that we should do better on taking care of. But I think he's kind of what people don't realize about. Have you ever had a grandparent die? I don't know. It doesn't go slowly. It's sort of slowly and then really fast all of a sudden.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting, and
a lot more.
I feel like I say this every 4 years, but
it comes from a human, just heart-to-heart human thing.
Yeah. I feel like I've said this every 4 years for the past, I don't know how many cycles, but I think it's interesting how much people, in general, there's a large percentage of people that seem to want something else. How are these the only options we have kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
It would be cool. It would be cool to get away from the idea of oh no, there's only two options that you're allowed to vote for. Otherwise you're wasting your vote, that kind of thing.
And there's a lot of big elephants in the room that have not been publicly conversed about at all because of this thing on now where a big faction in the dominant group say that talking about things causes them to be worse, which is probably the opposite of what happened. We really should be having loud public conversations about the things that they're trying to censor instead of trying to shove them to the side.
Which is what RFK is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they are trying to censor. It would be really great if we went back to how the vote used to be originally, which is where the person that got the most votes was the president and the person that got the next most votes was the vice president, because you could see a pairing of Trump and RFK Jr. and that would really unify our country. I think
that would be interesting to see.
One-on-one debates with the two final candidates at one point. It's not a tradition back in the 90s where you had 3 George Bush takes on Bill Clinton on a primetime show, neutral moderator, different forum type of thing, always happening.
I'm just imagining like a DeSantis gang run or something like that would be super interesting.
I think they should all have to go on Rogan for 3 hours.
Let's just mix everything up. It's getting boring, right? Mix it all up. It's too predictable and it's too boring. Make America unpredictable again.
There was
well, I mean, we actually have passed a lot of laws that have changed the ability for that. It's really hard to get on the ballot as a third party now compared to like 20 years ago. After Ross Perot made a decent go in the 90s, they changed a lot of electoral rules about how to get on a ballot as an independent. It became damn nigh impossible. Like, you wouldn't see another Ross Perot do that well ever again if we don't change those rules back or make them even looser if we're really pro-democracy.
The biggest thing that I've seen change in my short time, just the conversation around politics is like, it's so weird to me. I don't know if this is a result of how fast communication gets around and how like quickly like social networks put you in a team or in a bubble or something like that. But like for example, there's a lot of people that I know where if I were to voice any negative opinion of the Biden administration, they would be like, so what, are you a Trump supporter? Like this whole binary, like if you're not this, you must be that kind of thing, which is not, I feel like it's not a really productive conversation.
I haven't voted since 2008 intentionally as a political statement because I refuse to legitimize the regime's choices there. I mean,
and like 10 years ago, I had a lot of.
I agree with them being my ruler. So my vote says, right, I agree with one of these people coming out. I don't want them, any of them.
A lot of my friends on the left, like 10 years ago, were the ones that are saying, "Oh, I don't vote because my vote doesn't count anyway. It's always rigged." And now it's like, because people on the right are saying that, the same people on the left are like, "Oh, they're crazy saying that." And I'm like, dude, you were just saying that. Our memories are short. Our social networks put us in bubbles. Our conversations are unproductive. And I don't know. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
So there's politics. There's politics for us.
I think one of the
current events.
Lots of good things to be focused on, though, in politics, though. What we have seen, right, is a broadening of the conversation.
Our two-tiered system
used to be a very
of
effective,
justice.
Regime management system that was not letting much debate through. Like, debate that people would prefer not be had, like at a very angry, powerful level of government. They're not effectively stopping conversations visibly in public anymore, and they used to be. People used to be kind of terrified of the dreaded blue COVID ban.
Sure, they are.
Now you can talk it on YouTube again, right?
What are you saying?
No, you
the
can't.
The pendulum is swinging back towards
Your channel.
liberalization of speech.
No, you cannot. You cannot talk about certain things.
You can't talk about certain things still, but it's going the other way. That's my point.
I just got another warning on Twitter because I was on a Spaces the night before talking about some truth. So there must have been some algorithm thing capturing my words or something.
Or like just a malicious hate reporter,
I don't know.
Those people hitting the report button in bad faith are probably the cause of a lot of that still.
I just don't think there's that many people that are out to get me. I think it's more of a algorithm of big government. I don't think it's
anybody ever here like hit the report button on any social media app ever for somebody who just really pissed you off that you're just tired of hearing from, you didn't like, you're like, you know what, let them figure it out in a month whether or not this person actually did make a thing that will get you banned without an inquiry.
I know people do that. I've only ever done that if it was like death threats or something, or like some sort of real abuse like that needs to be.
I feel like everybody's probably done that, and if people say they haven't, they're probably lying about it a little bit.
Oh, I do that for ads I don't ever want to see again.
Right? Report them.
I'm like, I don't want to see this ad.
That needs to be a plugin on the browser, a Firefox plugin. Report every ad.
Honestly, I wish I could.
Weakest moments, like hit the report button and like they're like, it'll take a while to figure out. Have some fun time in the icebox, buddy. 2-minute lag.
Yeah,
I'm sure they don't get it.
But
everybody, come on, everybody, we've done it.
Yeah, that's why I'm starting my own video or social networking platform. It's called John's House. You come by my house, and I put up a camera, and then I do the show for you live, and you sit on the couch. And I just
Camera's not plugged in, but it is there.
No, yeah, it's just it's an old Fisher Price camera that for kids. It's what I use. It's exhausting. To be honest, I get requests for the shows just like all day, so I have to do the same exact show over and over for everybody that wants to see it. It'd be nice if there was just a way to like, capture that show and then just I could play it later for people, so I don't have to keep doing the show. But
one day
we'll figure it out.
Maybe they'll get a binder.
I do like the idea of like along the lines of like completely analog, that kind of thing, ways of fighting back against computers and networks being used against us, going back to film and going back to VHS and going back to, I've seen that a couple of times used in movies and stuff where somebody uses VHS tapes because you can't hack a VHS tape as easily as you can just like get a virus in someone's computer, that kind of thing.
That's bullshit. So, I hack VHSs all day.
You hit record and now you've copied it. Boom.
Supposedly that's what they have when they say we have it all. It's because the Epstein tapes and stuff are on. They're not digital, so they
that would make sense. That would make sense that it wouldn't be
the old I don't know what those are called, but
because not even because they were paranoid and they knew that was safer, but because they're old.
Yeah,
like they still you just see no, we just use the VHS camera.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that legitimately is a way to keep things more secret. If you assume that every Windows and Apple machine is compromised, which it probably is, then yeah, there's a backdoor into everything.
Yeah, and knowing that, then let's play it out. How do you trick your adversary? What are they going to try to do? Get to the point where they can assume everything that you do is earnest and true, right? So throw some random crap into your feed. Yeah, of course I searched for drugs on the dark market, but yeah, I also searched for how to install a contraception pill on a man that day. I wasn't being serious, right? You have plausible deniability in your past, even if they can say yeah, you went to the site. Curiosity is not a crime.
There's this is not exactly that, but there are plugins for your web browser that do similar things just for targeted advertising, just to fuck with targeted advertising, where it automatically clicks on every single ad for you so that it introduces noise into your patterns so that it doesn't as easily fingerprint who you are. So as you're browsing, you get all these ads that pop up. It blocks them, but before it blocks them, it clicks on them. And so you click on everything. So it thinks you're interested in everything. Yeah. So it can't target you as well. So it is a strategy
called obfuscation, which everybody should totally look up because it's probably about the only thing that can keep your stuff, your real life, marginally private, is to maintain a certain signal to noise ratio that you intentionally maintain, and then only fire up the VPN on the email you never use for anything else for things you really, really, really want to keep secret.
Yeah. I always like to think of those types of things in the context of if I were a protester in Iran or something like that, you know what I mean? Right. How do you keep yourself from being fingerprinted as someone who's organizing government protests in Iran?
Right.
Which is a dangerous, life-threatening thing to do.
And they get a hold of the onion router server that has all of your protester buddies on. How do you in advance make sure that you're not one of the ones that gets nabbed as being on the server? Right. Yeah. It can be stuff that's really stupid. They caught people for stuff on the dark web, dark markets, for using the same passwords they use in real life. A pattern.
It's almost always something stupid. That's the thing. It's always something stupid. Somebody logs into Facebook when they're on their VPN or something, and they used a credit card to buy their VPN thing.
Actual randomness. We have way more patterns in our behavior than we do.
What have you seen? I've seen dude was trying to extort his company and he was using a VPN that he paid for with a credit card, and that's how he got caught. So tells you right there, your VPN is giving your information to authorities because they have to. I've seen not as recently Lulzsec, if you remember them, their demise came from somebody logging in because they forgot to turn their VPN on. They logged in from their home
Their demise
account,
technically came
right?
from the fact that once they caught one of them, that guy squawked hardcore.
But that was the guy caught was because he logged into the chat room from his home internet connection without connecting through an anonymous network.
Said you're either the face of LulzSec or you're the guy who gets off light for giving us the worst one that we can send away for the longest time. Right? They once they get one, they get all, unless you're truly a decentralized network.
It just amazes me how many people do stupid stuff over, like, I had someone tell me that they're so paranoid that they only use WhatsApp for communications. Like, that's Facebook, bro. That's Facebook. What are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Dude,
even Telegram rooms and stuff. You got to have like a phone number usually to sign up for that. I mean, you can go jump through hoops, I guess. But
this is where that, like, remember that experiment I tried to make us do earlier, where John went all paper on me and I got thrown off because I only know computers. But what
if I use a pencil?
To be a tree environmentalist and a tree hugger because I hate paper so much.
Yeah.
People used to make fun of my handwriting as a kid. Yeah. Like, you totally screwed me on that, man. The experiment you play is like, who could actually be coming after me for this? Who's going to give a damn? If it's your grocery
the low tech play is real.
Identity.
Yeah, I don't know what you're saying, man. Like what I was saying, that's a real suggestion.
It's smart suggestion. It's costly though in the modern world, right? Like, you can't do a paper only DoorDash.
Yeah, there's
it's the cost versus
there's in between stuff where you don't have to use the internet. It's just slower, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if you guys heard of what's it called?
Levels, 7, I don't know, 3.
Briar?
Some
you guys heard of
number of secure levels, but my top one is way more pain in the ass than my regular everyday one.
Have you guys heard of Briar as a messaging app or a protocol? It's the concept there is like, what if you don't have the internet at all? How do you have a global network? Well, humans already are a network. We have social interactions with people. You go to work, you go to the gas station, the mailman goes around to everyone's house. There's interactions where people are like getting near each other all the time. Right. So if you're able to transmit messages between each other as people cross paths, eventually the message gets propagated out to where it's eventually going to go. It takes longer, but it works. So Briar works that way. It's an app on your phone. It's a messenger app. You send somebody a message. It might not get to them right away. But it doesn't require the internet. It just requires enough people in your area using the Briar app that as you go to work and as you go to daycare and as you go to church and as you go to the grocery store, eventually enough people have like walked by somebody else that has the Briar app on their phone that messages get relayed and it gets to the other person. So there's stuff that's like in the middle,
like zero knowledge
like that.
Sort of do, right? Where it's a pool.
It's like playing a game of telephone.
It is exactly like that, except it's encrypted messages that don't get deformed every time you transmit it to somebody else.
I was gonna say we've all played telephone. We all know how that game works out. So I don't know.
No, if you have perfect security though, and your mom and your grandma don't, they talk about where you are ever, then you're already blown anyway. So
chat's hot right now with Joe.
About you actually matters to you. So don't try too hard. You're probably not going to win.
Hey, here's a fun one. Would you rather Trump RFK or DeSantis RFK? If those are the only two options.
No, Trump RFK.
Or Trump for sure. Yeah.
Ever. Yes.
I feel like Trump RFK would be a weird matchup.
Sure, it would.
But at least it would be interesting.
We were talking about earlier about
RFK
like
and
having
DeSantis
opposing parties as the two seats.
You know, the one thing I think that RFK would have an edge over Trump on that he wouldn't against DeSantis, that might make if an RFK candidacy situation, a stronger candidate situation for DeSantis would be it's sort of, there's a lot of history on early vaccine response for Trump, and there's a lot of history on RFK having that right to start publicly, right?
You're picking up a little bit. I didn't hear all that.
Information and spin against Trump about there's a lot of spin against Trump.
I'm
on
talking
the
about the
early
facts. I'm talking about the
vaccine
story you could tell.
Yeah, there's a lot of spin on everybody about everything. It's politics. That's the whole game. Everybody's
Would
just
it be
like
easier to
throw
tag Gavin
everything
Newsom
and see what
or
sticks.
Gavin Newsom or Donald Trump was screwed up on vaccines? Right.
I just wanted to bring it back up because Joe was going off on RFK and Trump and
RFK takes away the COVID bullet for the Republicans otherwise have against Democrats almost ubiquitously. Like, if they ran him, they would take away probably the most potent attack that they have. If they ran, know why they're not actually seriously interested in RFK, because he's probably the only shield they have against that kind of crap.
Well, it's still not okay to suggest that there was any danger at all with vaccines. That's the main thing that I'm seeing. Like, even where,
except for the known public record stated stuff where you're quoting.
No. But that's the thing, though, is there's still this mindset of you can't talk about it, and if you do talk about it, that's where it's like, okay, we're not allowed to take this person seriously. Well, I mean, at least from where I'm sitting, that's what I've seen.
If you believe that the ratings numbers that Nielsen is reporting on anything on TV is meaningful with respect to, actual, voting patterns coming up in the next election, right? We watched how many years ago was that polling got Obama way wrong versus Hillary because everybody was switching to iPhones and they didn't pick that up at the polling stations because they were still calling landlines.
It's a good point. Do you think
everybody's grandma and predicted Hillary wrongly?
Do you think that do you think that the polls are keeping up with the way people communicate fast enough to be relevant?
I think our analytics are broken if we think that that the methods we used the last time around are going to actively predict how just from a statistical standpoint it's going to play out this time. It's foolish to think that it hasn't evolved enough that it's going to be different.
That's why I use the Briar app for all my polling. I just when I walk by people on the street, I ask them how they're going to vote.
Humans are going to get worse and worse at predicting the future the faster reality moves. We're getting faster. But
that's where we need to go back
about
to
the same
paper.
Pace. We don't change things till we get them wrong, embarrassingly, in public policy.
But that's where we need to go back to paper. There are things that maybe seems slower, and you could use encryption as far as validate the piece of paper and know how many pieces of paper and track the pieces of paper. But there needs to be a piece of paper. I think is it India? It's one of the ones where they dye their thumb blue or whatever.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
But if you genuinely are a candidate, for instance, who believes ballot harvesting was a major issue, right? Okay.
I definitely think
you believe ballot harvesting was a major issue that tipped it unfairly for Biden last time around. You try to change it back, or do you hire better ballot harvesters?
Right. This is kind of where I'm at. I don't actually care at this point. I think I've said this last time, but I don't actually care whether or not the elections were compromised or not. At this point, what I feel like is important is there's enough people. Right. But okay. We can argue about that until we're blue in the face and nothing fucking happens. So the stronger point, I think, is that there's obviously a substantial number of people who don't trust the system currently, who don't trust the way it works currently, whether they're right or wrong, right? It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. That's what we've been arguing about for 3 fucking years, at least. It's who's right and who's wrong. Who cares who's right and who's wrong? We have half of the nation who's I don't know if that shit works right. That's the problem.
Really gives a shit.
So we should fix that.
People doing legitimately dirty stuff in the administrative state that nobody's paying attention to anymore. People who are I know, let's make NEPA apply to hospitals so that we can make sure that we degrowth faster because we're Malthusians or whatever. There are so many things we ought to be paying attention to that require nuance and thought that are completely short-circuited by anything you can get in a shouting match over on in 120 characters, right? That stuff benefits the people who would prefer we didn't pay attention to the details. And there's a lot of those doing kind of stuff we probably don't like right now. They're probably really the ones making things bad. You
mean the prevalence of headline only conversation? You mean to where you don't have expanded
the level of detail
dialogue?
We pay attention is beneficial to the Fed. for example, if they want to keep doing things the way they're doing without changing anything or be subjected to any scrutiny, then we should keep at it, right? Because the more we shout at each other about cloth and paper masks from 5 years ago, the less we're paying attention to why Fed policy matters to how the economy works for the next 10 years, right? Or why the SEC matters with crypto. You know, I die to have people argue over what Gensler's actually doing with the regulation, why Chevron deference should be protested in the streets, right? Because it's destroying crypto. Instead, we have maxis out there, which I want to get to the maxis. Like, Jack got skunked, man. His Damus app got pulled. And
yeah, I saw that.
I think that would have happened if he wasn't making sure everybody knew that you were never going to get to trade anything other than Bitcoin on anything he ever built. He has not helped his network grow in a way that has limited it, and that kind of gets to the core of their network dominance analysis, right?
What was the
hidden edge of growth, and you need diverse communities that actually have truly different beliefs.
So first of all, what is the app? And then what was the reason it was pulled?
Nostr was the underlying protocol. Damus was the app that they got in the App Store, and they had these things called Zaps.
Yes.
Tread onto Apple's 30% payments cut if you squint at the rules the right way.
Right. So
Now,
Apple
whether or not
has
that
a
because it actually was creating the
30
revenue, or because Twitter didn't like the competition, and Elon Musk is shrewd about calling up his buddy and making a couple trades. Right? Like, we don't know.
yeah.
We don't know if that was an on the level block or it was because they were getting competitive, like Parliament.
And so isn't the debate now where over like interpretation of Apple's policy of 30% cut, where it's supposed to it's
That's
previously been interpreted as for sales, but tipping each other isn't a sale. So why would you take 30% of people's tips to each other? Isn't that kind of where it's at?
The shouting match distraction kind of looks like that, or at least that one fact. I think the real problem is, Jack built his public platform on maximalism, and he only has support from Bitcoiners who typically build on Google.
Oh yeah,
and stick to Android and Linux and don't buy Apple products.
You did promise a conversation about maximalism.
Fuck about Apple.
I think that
iOS people who liked Damus, and it's probably going to help a new market adopt. That's where he hit the edge. Somebody who's a take all comers network guy, like who likes all the coins because people like them and worth listening to. That if that Jack existed, they might have had a different story.
I think Bitcoin maximalists think they have a much larger mind share than they really do.
The top out, you can't force the growth after the point where you got all the people who are like the believers.
That's the only part that bugs me.
Cap's law, actually.
The thing where they're like, we want, like, we're all hardcore libertarians, but you have to do what we say, is so incompatible with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the thing I don't
why
get.
Would you cheer on Gensler making it top-down cronyist type of bullshit to shut down other networks?
Yeah, that's where you start to see what's really important to people.
Ayn Rand style competition, like what?
Yeah,
you're doing the bad guy in Ayn Rand if you in fact like Ayn Rand,
right? And I don't get this this emulsion that they are. I say they. I like Bitcoiners. I am a Bitcoiner. I'm a Bitcoin mostimalist. There's other things that work in different ways that aren't even necessarily competing with what Bitcoin is trying to do, though.
Right.
And
competing in a world where you think the only thing it's good for is replacing money, and the winner is going to be Facebook versus MySpace, when you're not thinking about the fact that right now today, like, people don't use Facebook to order an Uber; they use an Uber. People, like, the human digital tapestry is so much more complex, rich, and coins can be tailored to meet specific needs. So, Bitcoin's the dominant store of value, but they're not going to beat a network that's optimized for, like,
it's okay to just be dominant. It's okay to just be the number one. That's fine. Why do you have to be the only thing? And why do you have to shit on everyone else that has a different use case for something else? I was going back and forth with one of the biggest maximalists, like with Bitcoin Tina. And I don't know if you know Bitcoin Tina, really loud on Twitter. And he and I were just talking in DMs and stuff. And I was trying to like, it's like, yeah, okay, great. what if I just, okay, so Bitcoin, money, I get it, but there's other things that you can use even Bitcoin itself for, like you can actually use Bitcoin layer 1 for things that are not money. What is your problem with using it in ways that are not orthodox, that are not, like part of the way that is this preconceived notion of how it's supposed to use? And he just dismissed all of it. He was like, money is enough. And because money is enough for him, that's all anybody should be allowed to use it for. And that's where, to me, it's just absurd.
Let's see how he feels about it later down. Why are they still allowing it to be open source if it's perfect as is? Why would they ever let anybody do a fork?
Well, and if he's saying that, then he's saying that the rest of the world is not broken. And if you think that, go into our court system and check it out. Because if you think
that, then Congress has some democracy in Ukraine to sell you, right? Like,
exactly. I mean, there's so many things that there are other solutions that blockchain could help with.
Don't be a sucker.
Contracts.
Can't be trying to trick you into pointing your eyes away from the people actually in power.
And if you believe, if you believe that the solution Bitcoin came up with for fixing money works and is effective, which I do because it is, why would you not use that for everything you can possibly use it for? Why not? Why do you have to just care about money and then call yourself like a freedom fighter? Basically, what is that?
Right. And plus, like, we all have really got lines. There's no reason for us to actually dislike each other all that much. The people that we should be disagreeing with are the people that we should have always been disagreeing with.
And that extends to things like Litecoin too. Like when I say Bitcoin, I am not necessarily like, I have more of. I saw something like that Edward Snowden was saying in this sort of context that I think I agree with. That Bitcoin is more of a. It's like when people say cryptocurrency, right? Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are kind of synonyms. Bitcoin is like an idea; it's a way of doing things. And so to me, Litecoin is Bitcoin, right? It's like, oh, what if we did it this way? What if and if enough people are collectively, participating in that network, then it's really strong. It's really powerful.
Right.
And why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they be able to do what they wanted to do?
And we're talking about things too that are under attack by establishment orthodoxies, right? Like we know that the Fed hates the idea that there's nobody who can adjust the balances on the database, right? Where you can't cheat that in favor of the people who come to you regularly to do that, because that's the only way that the law's written to make you do your job the way you do it work, right? You have to make deals with people in order to get them to play along with things that aren't in their favor. And so you need to look at the numbers a little bit. Like that's literally the Fed's dirty secret. If you went down to it, they're putting money in people's bank accounts when they print, make up for the fact that when times are tough, they steal from those people first.
Well, we know that the dollar's dying, the Fed's in crisis. We all know that the recession is officially here in Australia. It's coming to America soon. And these other entities are seeing it as well and making their own CBDC. The Bank of International Settlement announced theirs. The UN announced theirs. The UN announced theirs, and theirs, of course, has all the ESG attached to it. So they're all like getting out of the US dollar, the petrodollar, and of course the BRICS thing, But
we're going to try to pretend that SDRs are the next thing. By the way, if you want to know what the BIS one is, guys, stay away from SDRs.
Software defined radios. What is SDR?
They're called standard drawing rights. Just stay away. They are the I guess you could call them the Sauron coin, because they're the global version of CBDCs.
We're definitely seeing governments all over the place looking at Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, being like, "Oh shit, that's actually a pretty good idea. How can we make that more?"
Terrified of it.
Well, they're like, but how do we make one that's more government-y kind of thing? Mm-hmm. The European Union just released some
rebrand it and lie about it, and people will buy it.
Messaging and marketing of it. Yeah,
message their way into getting people to pick their thing over Bitcoin.
EU just recently, I don't know if it's been signed in or whatever, but their standards for smart contracts and stuff include the ability to turn them off.
Yeah,
which I feel like is like saying, "Oh, you can't have this unless it can be turned off." The idea of something being able to just exist in the wild that anybody can interact with. That's the sticking point. I think.
There's also a weirder one lower down. Like if you get into like Solidity code libraries, it might sound super fun and friendly to use the fully functional token library that you can download in a package, but it comes with sort of dormant, but you can activate blacklisting capabilities and shit just built in, waiting for people who want to use it.
Well, that's for people running nodes, right?
It becomes the standard. That code is floating around out there, one law away from knowing everybody who has that code library installed has to follow the law that you have to turn it on and point it at our list, right?
Well, that's the difference between, I think what you're saying is the difference between knowing how to write your own from scratch that plays nice with the protocol versus knowing how to download open source code from GitHub and get it installed and running on your machine. Because far more people can do the latter. Far more people can get a node running that's set up for them to run a script to get it installed. And if the most popular ones or the only available ones have these sort of blacklisting capabilities built in, that's what's going to be dominant.
More to give an out of left field additional risk that most people probably haven't thought of. And I could continue on like a, you know, like a, if you guys ever seen that bit with John Mulaney listing off or pending to be Ice-T on Special Victims Unit. Whereas like the episode I want to see is where he just finishes the whole episode making the same or making slightly different analogies to the technical detectives spin on the evidence. Like, oh, so it's like the thing with the thing does the thing. I can't believe that. That's crazy. And he just wants the whole episode to be that. We have a list.
I know the bit you're talking about.
Those for you, John. I was referencing.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I know the bit you're talking about.
It's good.
I don't know
I'm
how
not
many
John
other
Mulaney,
people do, but
I didn't watch enough CSI to get it.
Point being, example. My list runs out. Your list runs out. We all don't have a complete list. The problem we need to be focusing on is complex, nuanced, and if you're getting angry or shouting or especially engaging in two-sided arguments online, you're missing probably the sleight of hand that's really taking the things that you value. So like have a little bit of, you know, charity towards the people you're talking to and humility, and try to think of everybody right now as your teammate looking at the people who aren't engaging in discussion because they don't want to be questioned. If they're silent, they're probably more culpable than the people who are arguing. It's my cold advice for everybody today on like how to handle this shit, because we've been fucking arguing over nothing for too long while they've been stealing the farm from underneath our noses. Thank you.
Just something to think
John, that
about.
was fun, buddy.
I got you.
Got to represent, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got to remind the people.
The system needs blockchain because no one trusts the system.
Yeah, I'm gonna pour like a Mountain Dew out because he's not.
How common are federal warrants being served?
I don't know.
Federal search warrant served at a home in Washoe Valley this morning, and it just says that it was served at a home near the chocolate factory.
The chocolate, like
that's what it says. That's all the information this article
Sounds like
says.
encoded spy talk.
It's probably for
That's
locals
what I'm
who
thinking.
The mongoose flies at midnight kind of thing.
And then it says like they've contacted the FBI, who says the warrant remains sealed and they cannot provide any additional information.
Who was it?
That means there's going to be more people going down.
The FBI served a warrant. A federal search warrant has been served at the home in Washoe Valley. Washoe?
It probably means they're investigating like a RICO thing or conspiracy.
This kind of what isn't that what the FBI does though?
I mean, that's actually probably pretty normal for what they do. I mean, it could bust out something terribly nefarious, right? But you know, like they're charging
like a weird announcement.
The FBI is kind of just there, like that's their whole thing though,
right? And that's actually one of the more legit things they do. If they're going after RICO, they're typically going after organized crime and shit. That's pretty nasty. They have steered some of that kind of questionably more recently, but I'm more interested in what they don't have to publicly say. The stuff they don't have to apply for to do is the stuff that worries me.
Like the stuff that was in the classified part of the Durham report.
Right.
I don't know what was in there.
Ooh, talk about that, Lisa.
That seemed very suspicious of you.
No,
Dave.
I'm sorry. I really don't know what was in there.
What's in there?
But my point was supposed to be that like there's not like it's not like okay, yeah, there's classified parts, but we don't know what the fuck's in there. Like we can't really talk. There's nothing for us to talk about.
We
Does anybody try to take an AI and
the thing that I thought was funny was he said was the conversation between him and Gates. So the day before, Durham has a private, the closed door to Congress, discloses everything, including the confidential stuff. So then the next day they have the public hearing, which is all scripted. I mean, we saw when Elizabeth Warren and the SEC had their talks, they all sent emails between each other. Hey, you want me to ask the question this way? Okay, yeah, let's ask the question that way when it's in public. So it was all scripted. So when it got to Gates and Durham doing their good cop, bad cop thing back and forth, you didn't check into this and that. You should have checked into that. He said, he starts digging him about, you know who the Washington Generals are? And Durham says, yes, I do. And he says, well, I bet they don't think it's funny when they're out there with blood, sweat, and tears. And then they have to go out and they get paid to lose. And Durham agrees. And he says, playing the Harlem Globetrotters. And Durham goes, oh, no, I thought you meant someone else. He meant the DC Washington Generals. So that was a way of them disclosing publicly that there are DC Washington Generals who get paid to lose.
Oh, I think you're talking the football team.
No, it's basketball.
Or it could be like club baseball.
No. There's the Washington Redskins changed their name.
Oh, the Generals now?
I think that they're like the Commodores or something.
I don't know.
This is probably what he thought they were.
I feel like South Park probably caused that.
Commanders.
Commanders.
They're the
that was
Commanders.
Not the point. You're missing the point. That is not the point.
The point is that you have a different interpretation from what he's talking about. Okay. No, go ahead.
No, you're talking about whether it's a football team or a basketball team. The point is he was talking about military industrial complex right in front of their face.
So he thought he was talking about literal generals, like actual generals.
Yes.
And so he was answering the questions as if he was being asked about literal actual generals.
About
and
the
being paid
Washington
to lose.
Generals
kind of thing.
being paid
now,
to
let's
lose.
Say you really wanted to be sneaky about this and you wanted to disclose something but have it really slide by. Let's say like a general who's retired committed a terrible crime and it looks bad for like a war effort or a government contractor that is currently big in a war effort or something. Wouldn't you release that and get people arguing about it right at the same time the press release came out on the back page of some crime reporting thing about the general who...
This is why we need better whistleblower tools.
That's what I'm talking about when people sneak behind. Right? They get people arguing about stuff and then they use the flood of keywords to hide things. Like
what if something had to come out?
In order to see the
I don't know what the law
is.
Wait,
so was he actually
have to come out publicly? So was that their way of posting it publicly?
Who knows? I've not looked into it.
But not having to actually say it in a way that people would understand because they're distracted by, it wasn't football, it was a basketball team or whatever the hell.
I personally think it might be flooding the zone attack because you can get people going who's on first a lot. And
I think I'm more of an Occam's razor kind of guy where I feel like
garbage into the algorithm so it doesn't know what you want when you're looking for the actual thing.
There's a reasonable chance that he probably just was confused about what they were talking about, or that I don't know if I don't know. I would have to go back and watch it. I didn't see it.
Targeted takedown requests on the reporters who actually got it right. Step 3: call everybody who read the article before the flood the zone tactic stopped working. Conspiracy theorists, and nobody can find it unless they know how to go to archive and look it up. That's what they do.
That's a lot of layers, though. That's a lot of layers.
Right. And I just came up with that on the fly, and it's not even my job to screw over people intellectually and gaslight them and convince them that their government's not messing with them like that. I mean, what about people whose career it is to do that from a PR agency that they're in a revolving door relationship with? You know, like there is definitely a whole like complex of people who come from like, you know, whatever the big 5 PR firms are in New York or Park Avenue or whatever, that go into government relations or government affairs, I think is what they call it. They choose the word a lot, so you can't even really Google the field.
John had to drop.
Someone would call me a nut for saying this and probably be able to make a plausible case to a normie. Because I would be defending myself with details.
What? With what?
With details, right? Like I'd have to get them to read details in order to get the point. And they're too busy.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Washington Generals to care, right?
So you're saying basically that if things are intentionally convoluted enough, that anybody who tries to point out what's going on would be seen as a nut, then you don't have to do much. You don't have to do much work to.
Or I can go fight about Bitcoin versus everything else. And
well, that's what the CIA said. The 3 Ds: distract,
that's why nobody gives a damn
disinformation,
about,
distract, and then discredit.
Right, that's why nobody gives a damn about the fact that maybe or maybe not the guy who invented Tornado Cash is still in jail for no charges. He got out, but a lot of people don't even know what Tornado Cash is, and they can argue all day about how ETH is a security, even though they don't know securities law.
It definitely does seem like it's beneficial to have everybody arguing about, you know, whose thing is better instead of just building a better world.
If I had access to direct the global
like to certain people, it's beneficial.
That's what I do.
I meant to say it's beneficial to the status quo to keep everybody arguing amongst themselves instead of trying to work together on stuff. So I can see that being
like the status quo, you know, get out there and encourage people to argue each other over
exactly how it's done, and whether or not it's like covertly disclosed on C-SPAN by, you know, like playing out a certain script that was predetermined to get messaging out. It's to me like that's getting a little bit down to the point where like I don't know, it's a bit much for me, but that's just me. I don't know.
Is there one of those that you buy that you've researched thoroughly?
Is there one of those that like one of those scenarios that I buy?
One of those scenarios that you spotted and been like, hey, I found this out. This is
well, I mean, Lisa brought one up already about, you know, the coordinated, I'm going to ask you this, you reply with that. There's at least that. We know at least that there's pre-coordination of what the questions and answers are going to be. And there does seem to be, you know, definitely like people selected that are supposed to represent, like Jamie Dimon gets a lot of say in how the conversation goes and how cryptocurrencies are represented to Congress, or somebody who has some random, not even really decentralized sort of trading platform gets to go to Congress and talk about, you know, how the SEC really does work out. And see, here's an example of how
Prometheum.
Yeah, Prometheum, that thing that nobody fucking cares about, right?
Yeah.
They get a seat and to talk to Congress. There is that sort of thing to sort of present that does seem like an obvious way to present something that you want to sow confusion about in a way that gets the public to look at it the way you want them to look at it.
It also keeps you from things like filing amicus briefs by deadlines and shit that you should probably be doing if you really want to have an impact, right? Like, it's a really good puppet theater, even for people who are right about the fact that it's a snow job. If they can't put their eyes away from the snow job or try to convince others that it's a snow job, right? You still win if you're the status quo. We need to get a muscle for looking away from those kinds of controversies.
And there definitely is a problem with, in the U.S. especially, pretending that corruption doesn't exist here. It's just other places.
Right.
You know, there is this sort of idea that, oh, we're somehow better than Russia and China, and we don't do the kinds of things that Venezuela does, and we don't do the kinds of things that Brazil does. Like, there's this idea that Americans are somehow obsolete, and that there aren't like banks paying off politicians, and there aren't you know, people that are on the payroll, that there aren't people don't believe that the CIA puts in agents into civilian companies to run them, or to introduce backdoors, or to introduce problems. People don't believe any of that. But it's
that's just like,
but those are like the sane things that really do happen that people still don't believe. So
Right.
anything
and
beyond that, they're
one
really not
example
going to
of it
believe
and
it.
go, let's do one example and go, okay, that happened. That was terrible, bad government. But if it's far enough back, they don't go find out who's in charge and see if they're still in charge of something else. Like they don't see who studied under them, who worked under them. Sometimes you can't find that.
And people
Because
will
schools thought about that kind of behavior.
People will, for some reason, look back and
Yeah,
believe that, oh, we used to do that, but somehow we don't anymore. You know what I mean? Oh, we used to do this thing called MK Ultra, but we don't do that anymore. Or we used to do this thing where we were going to, like have a false flag on our own civilians, but we wouldn't do that today. This idea that even if we were proven to have done it in the past, the recent past, this disconnection of reality to think that we wouldn't do it today.
We're more clever than that. We do one that they don't know the buzzword for.
But what that tells me,
to stage a fake false flag so we get people fighting over it while we do something else bad.
But what that tells me is they're doing a really good job. Like if that's the typical mindset, then and the strategy is to keep everyone from rebelling by getting them to not believe any of that shit, then they're doing a good job.
Well, and step one is get everybody angry at each other, but step two is make sure that we keep our focus as narrow. People really to turn away from those things. Even if everyone's calling them out, the right answer is to not play the game if you want to win.
And this is why blockchain matters. Lisa, you're muted. I can't hear you. But this is why blockchain based accounting, the accountability factor, where you can at least, even if you aren't able to prove what is true, if you can at least prove what is not true, that's a start, and that's what we can do today if we wanted to.
It even more importantly, I think, than that, it comes from a chain of thought that runs counter to this establishment in a cohesive way. The cypherpunk ideal is the only cohesive counter narratives that.
And we do have to cut in like a minute and two, or maybe 2 minutes.
Right. Oh, I think there's one thing we should probably point out to people though before we go, but I can't remember what it was now.
Okay. Well, we've got.
It's really important.
Yeah, we are up against a time wall. So let's keep it for next week. We've got whistleblowers and blockchain.
Emails. That's what it was. Lisa didn't.
Okay. We definitely can't talk about those. Wait, what emails?
The Hinman emails.
Oh yeah, that's a whole topic.
Yeah, we're gonna do that, a whole week of that. And we're going to have the opportunity to talk about the JP Morgan fines. We can talk about that with the whistleblower stuff next week.
Yes,
so that'll be
totally.
Great.
Yeah.
So we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything, Greg? John had to split, so I'll do that. My thing is
literally start building muscle of recognizing when you're about to get into a he said, she said fight, and don't call it out, don't shout at people and try to change their minds. Turn away and look for something else interesting going on. That's the only way you'll ever find anything happening that people are trying to distract you from with intentionally induced PR tactics.
Cool.
Read Bernays and then try to be nice and charitable to people, and you'll not get into this shit. If we can all learn to do that, we might end up in a better place as a society.
Have rational conversations with people you disagree with. Opposing opinions are valuable. Shouting matches are not.
Over something that I like don't disagree on. That's a good one.
All right. I don't really have anything else. Let's talk about whistleblowers next week and how blockchain can improve the situation around the risks associated with whistleblowing and things like that. So be sure to ask questions whenever you see that post pop up on the World Blockchain Roundtable layer. This has been this week's episode. Thanks, everybody. See you. We're out of here.